Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because I'm playing the first chapter of Deltarune, but I am not playing it on a modern console or PC. I'm actually playing it on Super Nintendo via the Earthbound Rom. That is because a bunch of motivated ROM hackers went out and recreated the entire first chapter of Deltarune within sight of Earthbound. That is because Toby Fox, the original creator of all of these games, basically got their start modding Earthbound for the fans. So fans decided they would go back and do the exact same thing in reverse. And to say the amount of work on offer here is massively an understatement. Recreating the entire first chapter of a massive game within Earthbound to run on Super Nintendo is absolutely just an accomplishment, and I absolutely love to see it. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But the world of Earthbound has always had a very unique graphical styling, and it really does marry together with the world of Deltarune. Now before we get too much further into this video, I need to make two things very clear so we're on the same understanding as far as what I'm talking about here. Off the top, I have played both Undertale and Deltarune, and I had a fun time with them, but maybe I didn't understand exactly 100% of what the game was going for, like some of the massive fans out there. I think it is absolutely a fun franchise. I think Toby Fox makes incredible games, and I did enjoy my time with them, but I am not in any way, shape, or form some sort of uber fan of these games. I think they are very good. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but I really do like the fact that people decided to make this in Earthbound because something about it actually makes me want to enjoy the game just a little bit more. Secondarily, in instances where there's no music underlying the game, I have added it in from the Deltarune soundtrack because I really don't like the sound of voiceovers without some sort of underlying backing track. And because I do have a corgi that hangs out in my studio when I record these things and likes to walk around, it does actually help to hide a few of those weird noises that you never actually notice within my recordings. But now that we have those two things out of the way, taking the bus here to school, it looks absolutely stunning in the Earthbound engine. This has just always been a game and a franchise that had a very distinct visual language, and I think when you combine that with the world of Deltarune, you really end up with something special, and at least in my opinion, something that I think will look even better than the original game. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think. What I really like here is this is just basically Deltarune Episode 1 remade in Earthbound, so you're going to have the same experiences, you're going to have the same gameplay, you're going to have the same storyline, just on the Super Nintendo versus on an actual modern system. What I really love about both Undertale and Deltarune is the overall lore, theory crafting, and people out there just trying to interpret the game. Now like I said, while it didn't 100% hit for me, and I don't actually go through all of those different theories, I love the fact that they build a universe that really does have all of that engrossing information that fans of the games can absolutely pick through. For me, it was a one and done playthrough. I had a good time with it. When something like this comes up, it makes me want to replay Deltarune again and maybe get a little bit deeper in. But there's just something about the Super Nintendo aesthetic here that really is so fun and functional when it comes to Deltarune. All of the text scrolls, everything else just looks stunning here. And just so you know, this will work on basically almost all modern emulators. You can play on original Super Nintendo hardware with a flash card, I believe. I didn't test it, I read that on the site. I did try this on the MiSTer FPGA Super Nintendo core and it booted up perfectly fine. So you should be totally fine however you want to play the game. Now the question is it worth a replay of Deltarune to experience Chapter 1 on the Super Nintendo in Earthbound? Obviously I think so because I made the video to tell all you guys about it in case you missed it. But if you just recently played, it is up to you whether or not you want to take another playthrough. And as far as whether or not they're ever going to finish the rest of the episodes and make a complete Earthbound Deltarune experience on Super Nintendo remains to be seen. I'm sure this thing gets a lot of press and the people that made it are still motivated to continue to do it. You might see at least a Chapter 2, so leave a comment down below and you tell me, do you want to see this thing finished, or is a bite-sized capsule piece of Episode 1 enough for you? And it's not like Episode 1 is the shortest thing ever. There is a lot of meat on the bone, and if you've never played this before, you could totally start here in Episode 1 and then move over to the mainline release for Episode 2 all the way through till the end. But there's just, again, a fun charm effect of having a game that kind of always felt like it was inspired by Super Nintendo hardware actually running on Super Nintendo hardware. The inspiration meets the hardware and it becomes the game that you always thought it could be. But here's a soundtrack sample and I'll be right back. I think the music and the sound effects coming out of Deltarune within the Super Nintendo sound hardware do have a really nice effect, and all of the colors here, trying to emulate what the original version would be, are looking really good on Super Nintendo, because again, even with all of the reference material, even with Deltarune being picked apart from start to finish, basically every single pixel being examined by somebody, you still need to be able to recreate all of that over on the Super Nintendo hardware, and you're not even recreating it in an original game, you are ROM hacking something like Earthbound, so you're basically on hard mode on this one, and that is why I decided to make this video, because sure, when I do stuff like Castlevania Symphony of the Night ROM hacks and things like that, I am absolutely stoked because it's one of my favorite games of all time. Something like Deltarune, again, I had a good time with, but I really wouldn't put it in my favorite games of all time list. But out of the sheer respect and admiration for the amount of effort that would have gone into making a ROM hack like this, it's always going to have a space on my channel because I'm always advocating for and stoked about fans doing this level of work, giving it this level of attention and detail so that people that really are in love with it can enjoy it. I think it's one of those things. This game hit for so many people, and maybe it's just because you were in a certain stage in your life, maybe it's because the storyline was more relatable to you than me, and I do not want anyone to think that I am saying I don't think Deltarune is a good game. I think it's an absolutely incredible game as far as the actual first experience for me was concerned, but it really isn't anything that I'll probably go back and play anytime soon. That being said, if Toby Fox releases a third game, I definitely would be playing it just to kind of check it out and have fun with it, because underlying all of this technical prowess of getting Deltarune over to Super Nintendo, it is still the same game, which means that if you love it, you're going to love it all over again, and if it wasn't 100% for you the first time, there's nothing about this version of the game that's suddenly going to make it something that you absolutely have to sit down and play. And you will see here in the combat system, it's going to be way more Earthbound focused, so there are going to be slight things in this game that do feel different, even though they are going to accomplish the same thing. And I really do like all of that waving background kind of has that kind of pseudo Mode 7 effect on Super Nintendo, or it could very well be Mode 7. I didn't look too far under the hood to see what was going on here. But honestly, again, this is the type of stuff that really keeps this hardware alive, because on paper there is absolutely no reason to take Deltarune Chapter 1 and remake it in Earthbound, but in practice playing it, you're just absolutely blown away with the level of what ROM hackers can get away with these days when it comes to just recreating new experiences. And that is why I always love talking about this stuff, because the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and every other console from back in the day, as far as the retail library is concerned, is a static target. It never changes because all of the games that are ever going to come out officially for it already have come out, and that hardware is off the market. So it is up to fans, ROM hackers, and fan developers to give us brand new experiences to really keep this hardware alive. And that's exactly what Deltarune on the Super Nintendo does. But we're going to do one more soundtrack sample because again, I love the soundtrack coming out of the Super Nintendo hardware, and I'll be right back. Definitely has an Earthbound vibe going on, and that is because it is an Earthbound and it is using the Super Nintendo sound hardware, even if it is playing some Deltarune music. And the reason I make videos like this is because I know for a lot of you this is going to be absolutely one of your favorite things to happen in 2025. I like making videos like this because I can talk about them from a technical aspect and talk about how a demake process can realize a game in a completely different way, even if you've played it before. So that is why stuff like this I always love talking about on the channel and showcasing. Fans and ROM hackers out there spent inordinate amounts of time making passion projects so they can share them with their friends and the community at large, so that everyone who enjoys something can enjoy it a little bit more. And that is always something I will advocate for on the channel, and always something I will give video time to. Even in the instance of Deltarune, it was a game that I had fun with, but it's not anything that I found to be mind-blowing. But I totally get if you find it mind-blowing, if you find it one of the best games of all time, if it is one of those things for you, I'm happy for that. I definitely think you're going to enjoy this. But as far as a ROM hack is concerned, this thing is an 11 out of 10, absolutely spectacular, and I love that it exists. And if you have played it before, leave me your thoughts down below, but it is pretty new in the last 24 hours. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.